back. Here's the truth nobody will tell you about self-growth. It's brutal, it's boring, and it will cost you more than you're willing to admit. Back. The version of yourself you dream about doesn't come from motivation or luck. It comes from sacrifices, discipline, and walking through discomfort nobody else can survive. Most people quit before it even starts because it feels like loss, not gain. Today, back. I'm going to show you what it really takes to grow and why comfort is the enemy of the person you're meant to become. Growth is painted as this glamorous transformation, back, where you suddenly wake up feeling powerful, confident, and unstoppable. But the reality is far from that polished picture. When you decide to grow it back, you're not just adding new skills or habits, you're also destroying parts of yourself that no longer serve you. And that destruction doesn't feel like empowerment in the moment, it feels like loss. It back. You're breaking attachments you've had for years, maybe even decades. You're saying goodbye to routines that once gave you comfort, even if they held you back. You're releasing relationships that once felt safe back, even if they kept you stagnant. And in doing that, you feel empty before you feel full. Growth begins with subtraction before it ever looks like addition. Think about the first time you truly tried to reinvent yourself. You were probably excited at first, energized by the idea of becoming better. But then, the deeper you went, the more you realized just how much of your current life wasn't aligned with where you wanted to go back. The foods you enjoyed no longer fit the discipline you wanted to build. The late nights with friends didn't match the consistency your goals demanded back. The conversations filled with gossip or complaints clashed with the mindset you were trying to protect. And suddenly, the life that once felt normal felt like it didn't belong to you anymore. Back. That gap between who you are and who you want to be is where the pain of growth sits. This pain is why most people quit before they see the reward. It's easy to crave change when you only focus on the results. Back. But when the process requires you to dismantle your old identity, it feels unbearable. It feels like you're betraying the version of you that's been carrying you all along. And there's guilt in that back. Because you ask yourself, was the old me really that bad? Maybe I could just stay the same and avoid the discomfort. But the truth is, staying the same comes with a different cost. The cost of regret. Back, the cost of stagnation, the cost of knowing you settled. And if you avoid short-term loss, you lock yourself into long-term emptiness. Growth is always a trade, and you pay up front. The loss isn't just internal, it shows up externally too. The people who used to understand you might start questioning you. They'll say you've changed like it's an accusation, not a compliment. It back. They'll miss the version of you who always said yes, who always went along, who never challenged the status quo. And it stings because deep down, you miss that version too. You miss the ease of not having to defend your choices. You miss the simplicity of belonging without friction. But belonging and becoming don't always coexist. To step into a higher version of yourself, it back, you have to risk being misunderstood by the world you're leaving behind. That's where the grieving comes in, because growth is a form of grief. You mourn the comfort of habits that no longer fit back. You mourn the security of relationships that don't evolve with you. You mourn the safety of old patterns even if they were unhealthy. It's not just about building discipline or learning new skills. Back. It's about walking away from pieces of your identity. And grieving is uncomfortable, messy, and slow. Some days you'll question if it's even worth it. You'll look back at your old life with rose-colored glasses, back, forgetting the reasons you wanted change in the first place. That's the paradox of growth. You long for the very thing you once prayed escape. But here's the thing, that longing doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It means you're human. It means you're attached to the familiar because the familiar feels safe even when it's destructive. Every time you try to grow, back, your mind will trick you into believing the past was better than it was. It's a survival mechanism, a way to pull you back into comfort. But comfort and growth are opposites. You can't hold on to both and expect to move forward. So when the grief hits, when the emptiness feels unbearable, remind yourself that this is part of the process. You're not broken, you're evolving. The hardest part is that the rewards don't show up right away. You don't cut off toxic habits today and wake up stronger tomorrow. You don't distance yourself from draining environments and instantly feel lighter. It back. You don't rebuild your identity overnight. Instead, you go through long seasons of silence where it feels like you're losing everything but gaining nothing. And this is where most people turn back. Take it back. They can't handle the gap between sacrifice and reward. They forget that the foundation has to be torn down before the rebuild begins. They stop before the results can reveal themselves. Back. And then they label growth as too hard, when in reality, they just quit during the demolition stage. Think of it like renovating a house. You don't start by hanging up new curtains or painting walls. You start by tearing things down, walls, floor, ceilings, until the place feels unlivable. That stage is ugly, it's chaotic, it's uncomfortable. But it's necessary if you want to create something stronger. Get back. Growth works the same way. The demolition phase is where you strip away all the pieces of yourself that can't support the life you're building. And just like in renovation, get back. You don't see beauty at this stage, you see rubble. That's why so many people abandon the project, not realizing that rubble is the proof that change is underway. And yet, for those who push through, something incredible happens. The space you cleared begins to fill with new patterns, stronger habits, healthier relationships, and a deeper sense of purpose. But none of that would be possible if you hadn't let go of what once filled the space. It's the emptiness that makes room for growth. It's the loss that creates space for gain. And when you look back, you'll realize that the grief you carried was not a sign of weakness, but proof that you had the courage to let go. Without loss, there is no growth. Without discomfort, there is no transformation. Growth feels like loss before it feels like gain, and that is the harsh truth nobody wants to tell you. When people think about growth, they often imagine breakthrough moments, big wins, sudden clarity, and life-changing transformations. But that's not how it really works. Growth doesn't usually announce itself with fireworks or dramatic changes. Instead, it hides inside the daily grind, in the routines nobody claps for, in the habits nobody notices. The harsh truth is that growth is built in silence, in the boring repetition of small, consistent actions. And that boredom is where most people lose. They chase excitement, thinking motivation will carry them, when what actually carries you is discipline. Growth rarely looks thrilling in real time. It looks ordinary, repetitive, and sometimes painfully dull. Discipline is misunderstood because it doesn't give instant gratification. Going to the gym when you don't feel like it doesn't give you immediate results. It just gives you sweat and sore muscles. Reading 10 pages of a book doesn't change your life in that moment. It just feels like a task completed. Waking up early doesn't magically turn you into a new person. It just feels like lost sleep. But these small, boring choices stack up. They create compound interest in your life, the kind that transforms you slowly, so slowly you don't notice until months or years later. The problem is people don't want slow they want instant. And when discipline doesn't deliver quick fireworks, they abandon it for the next shiny distraction. This is why discipline feels like the real shortcut, even though most people think it's the long way. They search for hacks, shortcuts, and magic formulas that promise fast results, but those roads always lead back to the same truth: consistency wins. Every person who's transformed in a meaningful way has done it by repeating unglamorous habits over and over again. That's the part nobody wants to hear. The shortcut isn't the program that guarantees results in 30 days. It's the willingness to show up for 30 months. The shortcut is doing the boring stuff so many times that it becomes automatic. If there's a secret to growth, it's this: you win by mastering the boredom that makes others quit. The irony is that boredom itself is a test. It's the point where you decide whether you're serious or not. Anyone can get excited about a new goal in the first week when motivation is high and energy is fresh. But what about the 100th day when the excitement is gone and all that's left is repetition? That's when most people drop out, not because it's too hard, but because it's too dull. They can handle discomfort, but they can't handle monotony. They'd rather chase new, exciting goals than repeat the same actions that actually create results. And that's why discipline becomes the line that separates growth from stagnation. If you look closely, you'll see that all forms of mastery are born out of boredom. The best athletes don't just love the game, they love the drills, the endless repetitions that most people can't stand. The most skilled musicians don't just perform, they practice scales for hours over and over until their fingers ache. The most consistent entrepreneurs don't just enjoy the wins, they embrace the unexciting routines that keep the business alive. Behind every extraordinary result is someone willing to do ordinary things repeatedly without needing constant excitement. Growth is never about what you do when you're motivated. It's about what you do when you're not. There's a trap in constantly seeking inspiration. You can spend your life chasing motivation, thinking you need to feel good in order to act. But waiting for inspiration is just another form of procrastination dressed up as self-care. Discipline doesn't care if you're inspired. It demands action regardless of mood. That's why disciplined people look unstoppable. They don't negotiate with their feelings. They understand that growth requires moving forward even on the days when it feels pointless, even when progress is invisible. And in those invisible days, when it looks like nothing is happening, the real transformation is taking place. Most people don't quit because it's impossible. They quit because it's uninteresting. They don't fail at building new habits because they lack the ability. They fail because they expect excitement. They think growth should feel inspiring every day. And when it doesn't, they assume they're on the wrong path. But boredom is the right path. It's a sign you're doing the work consistently enough that it no longer excites you. That's not failure, that's progress. The unglamorous grind is the fertile ground where results are planted. If you can survive the boredom, you'll reap the rewards that others never touch. There's freedom in discipline, even though it feels restrictive at first. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That just leads to chaos and regret. Real freedom comes from training yourself to do what needs to be done, no matter how boring it feels. Because once discipline takes over, you don't waste energy negotiating with yourself. You don't battle with indecision or excuses. You act because it's who you are now, not because you feel like it. That's the quiet power of discipline. It shifts growth from being a choice you argue about to a lifestyle you embody. And the truth is, boredom doesn't last forever. The same habits that feel dull in the beginning eventually become your identity. What once felt like sacrifice starts to feel like second nature. What once required effort becomes effortless. Back. And that's when growth reveals itself. Not in a sudden explosion, but in a slow, steady unfolding. You look back months later and realize the person you've become is unrecognizable compared to who you were. Get back. And the only difference was that you kept doing the boring things long enough for them to reshape you. The magic wasn't in the excitement, it was in the repetition. Back. So when people tell you growth is about mindset shifts, inspiration, or chasing big dreams, they're only telling you part of the story. The other side, the side nobody glorifies, back, is that growth is painfully boring most of the time. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's not about constant excitement, it's about consistent action. Back, it's not about finding the quick hack. It's about repeating the same ordinary behaviors until they produce extraordinary results. And the harsh truth is, if you can't master boredom, you'll never master growth. When you start to change, the world around you doesn't always celebrate. The truth is, growth is disruptive and disruption creates resistance. People are used to a certain version of you. The one that was predictable, back, familiar, and easy to understand. When you shift your habits, your priorities, or your mindset, you upset that balance. Suddenly, you're no longer the same character in their story, and that makes them uncomfortable. Back. They question your choices not because you're wrong, but because your growth forces them to confront their own stagnation. Change exposes people, and most don't like the mirror it holds up. Back. So instead of cheering for you, they resist you. That resistance is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're growing. Think about the conversations that change once you start growing it back. Where gossip or complaining used to feel normal, now it feels draining. Where staying out late or indulging in old habits used to feel fun, now it feels misaligned with who you're becoming. And when you no longer participate, people notice. At first, they might joke about it, making light of your choices. But over time, the jokes shift into criticism, sometimes even resentment. Back. They don't understand why you're no longer interested in the same things, and they interpret it as rejection. Back. What they miss is that your choices are not about them. They're about the direction you want for yourself. But to them, your growth feels like abandonment. Back. The most difficult part is realizing that not everyone will come with you. You'll want them to, because these are people you've loved, trusted, and built your identity around. Get back. You'll hope they'll understand why you're changing or even be inspired to join you. But often they don't. Instead, they cling to the old version of you, the one who made them feel comfortable. Back. And when you stop fitting into that mold, they push back. They might try to guilt you into returning to who you were. They might label you as selfish, arrogant, or different in a way that feels negative. And while it hurts, it's also confirmation you're no longer stuck in the same cycle. This resistance is one of the biggest reasons people stop growing. Back. It's not the discipline or the sacrifices that break them. It's the pressure of relationships that no longer fit. Humans are wired for connection, for belonging, and the fear of rejection is powerful. So when people you care about push back against your growth, it can feel easier to shrink yourself back into the old version they prefer. You trade your progress for their approval. But every time you do that, back, you betray yourself. You silence the part of you that's evolving in exchange for comfort that's temporary. And over time, that betrayal becomes heavier than their rejection ever could be. The harsh reality is that your growth will cost you relationships. Some will fade quietly, others will end in conflict, and some will linger with tension. That's the price of becoming someone new. Take it back, because when you evolve, you're not just changing your behaviors, you're rewriting your identity. And not everyone is willing to update the story they hold about you. To them, back, you're supposed to stay the same forever, because that's how they define their own world. But staying the same to make others comfortable is not growth. It's imprisonment. Back. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself that no longer feels true. You owe yourself the chance to step fully into who you're becoming. It helps to understand that their resistance isn't really about you. Back. It's about what your change represents. When you grow, you highlight the fact that others have the same potential but aren't acting on it. That reality stings, and instead of facing it, many project their discomfort back onto you. It's easier for them to criticize you than to examine themselves. In a way, back of their resistance is a backhanded compliment. It means your growth is noticeable enough to make an impact. It means you've become living evidence of what's possible. Back. And that evidence is uncomfortable for those who've chosen comfort over growth. The pushback you feel is less about your choices and more about their fear of change. But even knowing that doesn't make it painless. Back. It's hard to accept that the people who once supported you might not support you anymore. It's hard to keep going when the voices around you grow louder with doubt. You'll question yourself, back, wondering if maybe they're right, if maybe you're being unreasonable. That's the real challenge of growth. Not just building new habits, but building enough conviction to keep going when others don't understand. Hit back. Conviction is lonely at first. You have to believe in your future self so deeply that you're willing to endure present rejection. And that's a level of strength most people never train. Eventually, hit back, you realize that approval is not the fuel for growth. Conviction is. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You don't need constant validation or applause. Back. What you need is clarity about why you're changing and resilience to keep moving despite the noise. Some people will eventually see your results and respect you for it, but others never will. And that's okay. It back. Their inability to support you doesn't mean you're wrong. It means your paths no longer align. Growth requires the courage to let people misunderstand you without letting it stop you. Back. It requires building enough inner certainty to replace the external approval you've outgrown. The beautiful part is that while some connections fade, new ones emerge. It back. When you create space by letting go of environments that resist your growth, you open space for environments that nurture it. You meet people who understand your drive, who share your values. Back. Who celebrate your discipline instead of questioning it. These new connections might not replace the old ones immediately, but they remind you that growth doesn't have to be lonely forever. Back. The resistance is temporary, the alignment you find later is lasting, and every step you take despite resistance proves that you value your future more than your comfort. In the end, back. Resistance is the proof that growth is real. If no one pushes back, it's a sign you're not changing enough to disrupt the old patterns. It back. The very fact that your environment reacts means you're no longer fitting into the box it built for you. And while it's tempting to shrink back into that box, remember this, back. You didn't start growing to stay the same. You didn't begin this journey to keep everyone else comfortable. Growth demands resistance because growth demands change. And the harsh truth is, back. Not everyone will clap for you, but you must keep moving anyway. Most people think self-growth has a finish line, as if one day they'll wake up and finally arrive at a version of themselves that is complete. They imagine a moment when confidence, discipline, and purpose all align perfectly. But the reality is far from that idealized picture. Growth is not a destination. It's a constant journey with no ultimate endpoint. Back. Every level you reach only reveals a new level of discomfort, a new challenge to overcome. The process is endless because life itself never stops evolving. Back. To think there's a final version of yourself is to misunderstand the nature of progress. Real growth is measured not by how far you've arrived, but by your ability to keep moving forward. Back. Every stage of growth brings a new set of demands that didn't exist before. When you solve one problem, another arises, often more complex than the last. What once felt hard eventually becomes manageable, only for the next challenge to push you further. Comfort zones shrink as expectations expand. You learn that mastering one skill is meaningless without mastering the next. The more you grow, back, the more you realize how vast the terrain of improvement really is. Growth is not linear. It's an evolving spiral where every level requires renewed effort, resilience, and adaptation. This cycle continues as long as you choose to keep evolving. One of the hardest truths is that the discomfort never fully disappears. Many expect growth to bring lasting peace or permanent confidence. Back. But every advancement comes with friction, self-doubt, fear, and uncertainty will always resurface. You might handle it better now than you did before, but the challenges persist. Back. Growth is not a shelter from life's difficulties. It's a set of tools to navigate them more effectively. You must embrace that discomfort as a companion, not an enemy. Back. Learning to endure tension and uncertainty is the mark of someone truly committed to self-evolution. Without accepting discomfort, growth remains superficial, fleeting, and unsustainable. Back. The journey of self-growth demands vigilance and self-awareness. You must consistently check your habits, mindset, and relationships to ensure they align with the person you're becoming. Old patterns try to creep back, and old influences attempt to pull you down. If you're not attentive, stagnation happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. Success in growth requires continual correction, recalibration, and refinement. Back. There is no permanent victory over your limitations, only temporary mastery until the next challenge arises. The moment you stop adjusting, you stop growing, and the illusions of arrival crumble. It back. Growth demands ongoing investment in yourself, no matter how advanced you become. Another layer of truth is that progress often feels invisible while it's happening. Back. You won't always see immediate results or tangible rewards. The daily choices, small sacrifices, and consistent efforts pile up silently. For a long time, it may feel like nothing is changing, even though your skills, back, resilience, and perspective are quietly improving. This invisible accumulation is why patience is a critical component of growth. It's why people give up prematurely. They expect visible validation at every step. The real transformation is slow, subtle, and often unrecognized until you reflect on how far you've come. Awareness of this process separates those who endure from those who quit. As you grow, back, you also learn that comparisons are futile. Growth is not about matching someone else's timeline or measuring yourself against another person's success. The journey is uniquely yours, shaped by your experiences, challenges, and goals. Comparing yourself only introduces unnecessary frustration and distraction. Progress is internal, not external. The true measure of growth is how much better you are than your former self, not how you stack up against others. Embracing this mindset allows you to move forward without being derailed by envy, doubt, or the unrealistic expectations imposed by society. It back, one of the most liberating aspects of realizing growth has no finish line is the shift in perspective it brings. Instead of chasing an endpoint, you begin to focus on momentum, discipline, and consistency. Back. You understand that the pursuit itself is the reward. Every challenge you overcome, every habit you reinforce, every skill you acquire is part of the continuous unfolding of your potential. You stop expecting a final, arrived moment because you recognize that life is a series of growth cycles. Each cycle builds on the last, compounding into a life of constant improvement and adaptation. The process becomes as meaningful as the results themselves. Yet with this understanding comes responsibility. You can no longer rely on luck, external validation, or comfort to maintain progress. You are accountable for your evolution every single day. Growth requires ownership over your actions, your mindset, and your environment. No one can do it for you, and no one can shield you from the consequences of inaction. Every choice matters, and even small decisions accumulate over time. Recognizing this empowers you to take deliberate, intentional steps toward your vision. Understanding that stagnation is a choice just as much as growth is. The journey of self-growth also teaches resilience and humility. You learn to embrace failures, setbacks, and mistakes as integral parts of progress. Each challenge is a lesson that builds the depth, strength, and character needed for the next level. Humility emerges because you realize no matter how far you've come, there is always more to learn, more to overcome, more to refine. Resilience develops because the process trains you to recover, adapt, and persist, even when circumstances are difficult. These qualities become the foundation for sustaining long-term growth, ensuring that you not only evolve but thrive in every phase of life. Ultimately, self-growth is a lifelong journey of becoming. There is no final arrival, no ultimate version of yourself to reach. What matters is showing up every day, embracing discomfort, and committing to continuous improvement. Life rewards those who are willing to endure the unseen, unglamorous work and who persist despite setbacks, resistance. And invisible progress. Growth is not a destination, it's a lifestyle, a mindset, and a choice repeated over and over. The fulfillment comes not from arriving, but from engaging fully in the process, knowing that each step, each challenge, and each lesson adds to a life lived intentionally. And the most empowering truth is this: the journey never ends, but that is precisely what makes it infinitely rewarding.